Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So, good afternoon, everyone. We will start our third session of the day that is hosted by Vadodara chapter on the topic of cultivating the culture of empowerment. We have Suchit Patel with us today as the speaker of the session. So, before we begin this session, I would like to give a thanks to our founding sponsor, Innovation Roots. It is a leading consulting and training service provider helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. It is one of the leaders and pioneers of niche publishing services and well known for content collaboration with global thought leaders, authors, and creators. Please visit www.innovationroots.com to see their upcoming trainings and summits. Thank you. I would also like to thank our sponsor, Gile. A little bit about Gile. So, it is a product offering from Tata Consultancy Services Limited. It is a purely cloud based enterprise agile planning tool along with DevOps capabilities. Enterprises can use Gile to adopt agile practices or scale across multiple Scrum and Kanban teams using enterprise scaling frameworks such as SAFe, Disciplined Agile, Less, and more. You can try out Gile for free up to 20 users for 1 year by signing up at gile.io or reach out to us for the exclusive product demo or any other inquiries. Please do check out the Gile page on Agile Network India website for more information. Now, I would like to pass on the mic to the facilitator of this session. Saurabh, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Prakash. Hello everyone. Today's session, we have a couple of things that I would just like to introduce that what are the part of our session. So we will cover that what is the exact culture, means, and how do we empowerment our culture, right? And do there are a couple of areas that we will cover related to how to cultivate the empowerment. What are the culture empowerment keys, like balance of employment keys like authority, accountability, responsibilities. So there are more things that we are also going to cover as part of our session. And Suchit has a wonderful presentation that will be he's sharing with us. So over to you, Suchit. Thank you.
Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to today's session. First of all, I would like to thanks Agile Network India for providing me with this opportunity to speak on this exciting topic, culture of empowerment. I'm sure by the end of this session, there will definitely be some key takeaways for everyone. I will be taking around 30 to 35 minutes of your time to discuss on few critical aspects of what is culture of empowerment and how to build it, and what we as Numerator have done for it, right? I would love to make this an interactive session and all the questions are welcomed at any time. So before we move on to the culture of empowerment, right, I would just like to give some introduction about me. So that's me. I am a certified human resource business partner. I'm also a certified compensation and benefits manager. I have done certification in HR analytics, Six Sigma Green Belt certified professional, carrying more than 14 years of total experience into the HR gamut. My entire focus for this 14 years has been into ITES industries. I'm currently associated with Numerator, which is a consumer insights company, as Director HR heading the India operations. And I'm also serving on the board of directors for Numerator India Vadodara. So our total strength is more than 1,200 employees. So that's something about me. Now, before we move ahead and we start the session, I would just like everyone to, look at this, some of the famous quotes. I have not put in the name of the authors in this, and it would be very interesting to see how many of our audiences, might be aware of this quote. So I would request any and everyone who may be aware of the authors of this quotes to please put in the names of the authors in the chat box, right? So let's start. So that's the first quote. My job as leader is to make sure that everybody in the company has great opportunities and they feel they are having meaningful impact to the good of society. Anyone from the audience who is aware about this quote, who quoted this? Okay, so that's Larry Page, who has quoted this, who is the co-founder of Google, right? So second, it's not the tools you have faith in. Tools are just tools. They work or they don't work. It's the people you have faith in or not. Anyone aware of who quoted this one? Steve Jobs, right, Ankita? So that's Steve Jobs. We all know who he is, right? Co-founder of founder of Apple. Sorry. So next one, empowering the individuals means empowering the nation. Anyone aware of this one? Okay, no, Amita, that's our late PM Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So he is the person who had quoted the statement, right? So next one, we move on to the next and the last one. So the best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done and self-restraints enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it. Any idea, who quoted this thing? Roosevelt, right? That's Theodore Roosevelt, right? The great American Prime Minister. So, I mean, if we just, if everyone would have observed in this, right, there is something common between all these quotes. There's a theme of empowerment, right? All the great leaders think alike, and they do believe in the fact that success can only be brought upon by providing empowerment to their employees, right? So that's why I thought that, I would just pick up some of the quotes and see like what the great leaders have been speaking. And that's absolutely right, that cultivating the culture of empowerment is the most important thing, whether it's Larry Page or whether it's Steve Jobs, or even for the nations, if we consider like Atal Bihari Vajpayee or Theodore Roosevelt, right? It remains same across everywhere, whether it's a nation or a culture. And I would just recommend everyone that, there is one excellent book by Kim Scott. She is the author of the book known as Radical Candor. And this book states about, various experiences she had while she was working with people in Apple, right? So, and she is the person who has directly worked with Steve Jobs and Larry Page. So it's a very practical, it has a very practical approach and practical examples that are written in it. So I would recommend everyone to, just go through this book once, especially for those who are in the management. So now let's begin with the topic, right? So culture and its importance. So first of all, what is culture? Like, I mean, I know we say that culture is, the behavior and beliefs, characteristics of this social, ethnic, or age group. It also has effects on how you think and feel about the group. But when we talk of the corporate culture, can anyone, provide it in a one line or a one word? What does culture mean according to them, or a corporate culture? What according to them it is? If anyone can, just write down in the chat what according to them is a corporate culture. Okay, the way we think and work. Okay, so anything that we can write in just one word or that sums up everything. Okay, way one conducts oneself. Okay,
The personality of an organization.
right. But environment, okay, how people treat each other in the organization, right? So I mean, this all are correct, right? When we talk of culture, all of these statements that are, put over here, everything falls true. But according to me, right, when we talk of culture, culture is company's biggest profit and loss center, right? Because if you have a good culture, you win your company, you win your employees, you win your clients, right? But if the culture is not proper, then nothing works. So it's actually the biggest profit and loss center, right? It has direct and indirect impacts both. So that's how it is. Now we need to understand the other aspect is why is now that culture is getting more and more important in any and every company, right? So there was a survey from Gallup which says that 2/3 of the workers are disengaged, right? And that is true across any company you take, right? Majority of the people are disengaged, and one of the major reasons of this disengagement is empowerment. And when we talk of empowerment, it does not mean only authority, but it means like, how we are also supporting them. So we'll look into those statements at the later, like, how we can do that. But that's a very fact of the companies that you can say that the 2/3 of workforce is disengaged. Also, another very important aspect that we need to look around is, right, the today's workforce generation, it is divided into 4 major categories. And the millennials and Gen Z, right? So these are the people born between 1981 to 2012. So they have like, they are over 26% of the workforce. So the majority of our workforce right now are millennials and Gen Z, Baby boomers are around 24%, Generation X, that is 20%, and the greatest generation, right, that's just 9%. So if we say our majority of the workforce is dominated by millennials and Gen Z, and when we talk of this generation, especially Z, right, then their expectations are very different from anywhere. They are not who are the people who are just looking for a 9-to-5 job, right? They are someone who are looking for empowerment. They are someone who are looking for, different creativity. They are looking for somewhere where, they can feel that they are included. So the inclusion, or the diversity, whatever you talk, right, everything is what the Gen Z especially are looking out for. They are looking out for flexibility and everything. So these are the things that are very much required by any company, right, to make those changes in how they have been working. And to support this fact, if we look at the average tenure of millennials and Gen Z, right, it's just 2.6 years. So definitely it's not something that, if any of the employee who just stays around 2 years approx, right, is going to be very productive to the company. We definitely need people who would be staying across for longer period of times, and that's where this culture of empowerment comes into picture, right? So that's what we call as culture and its importance. Now look at what is empowerment, right? So in all, we generally know, right, that empowerment is a mix of attitude, capability, conditions, and opportunities. But when we talk in terms of corporate, right, so what empowerment is, so empowerment is the giving or delegation of power or authority. It is the autonomy to decide what you will do and how you will do. It is the freedom to challenge your without fear, power to affect change, and owns the ownership and have the ownership of the outcomes, right? So this is pretty much what defines the empowerment in a company. Now, to have this thing, there are a lot of areas that we will need to ensure that, they are working in a right way. So let's first look at the keys to create the culture of empowerment, right, on how we can create this. So the first thing that is required is the authority, which means I'm allowed. Now, having a clarification and allowing others to use their authority is one of the most powerful factors seen in any of the healthy organizations. And leaders can only grow when they are allowed to lead, right? Now, as a company, when you are trying to define this sort of a culture of empowerment, right, there are few questions that you will need to ask yourself related to the authority, providing the authority. Do they lead or manage anyone? How much money can they spend without asking permissions? What can they start without asking permissions, or what can they stop, or what can they change without asking permissions? Which areas of decision making do they have to consult with about leaders before acting, right? So these are various questions that everyone, like any company, will need to think and be very clear on while you are providing authority to your employees, that what they can do and what they cannot do. There has to be a clear cut, crisp differentiation between the powers that are given to the employees and what cannot be given. Any gray area results into imbalance. Second is responsibility. What I am expected as an employee to do over here, right? So our responsibility is the expectations and goals that have been put before us, right? So every company has their own mission and vision statements, and there are these goals from each and every company, right? And that is what needs to be carved into the responsibilities. Now there are various ways on which you can go and create this. One of the best examples is management by objectives. So if you have that sort of vision and mission, which is converted into management by objectives, and that is how your entire evaluation strategy and the performance criteria and everything is kept, it is a very clear, precise understanding that the employee would have on what they need to do and how much they need to do, right? And to create this, or to clarify, rather to clarify the responsibility, again, few questions that any company or the management needs to ask is, who do they go if they have an issue, right? Where do the employees go for when they have an issue? Who has an interest in their roles and the authority to affect it? Who can increase or decrease the level of authority? right? Who can change their responsibilities, who can check in with them without asking permissions, and who do they answer to? So these are few of the questions that needs very much clarification, where we are defining responsibilities of each and every individual, whether in whichever role they are, and that is where it will help. Third key that is required is accountability, meaning I am overseen. Accountability is nothing but helping someone, right, give an account of their ability. It is less about punishment and it's more about support. So when again, as a management, right, few questions that we need to think: what are we assessing the employees on, or what are we appraising the employees on, right? What does a success look like in a particular role? If the employees are leading or managing anyone, what are their responsibilities, right? What things, if not done, if they don't do them, would bring about difficult conversations with their leaders? So these are few of the questions that as a company everyone needs to ask. Now the main thing to understand over here is, right, we have talked that these are the three keys: authority, responsibility, and accountability. But the most important thing to see is to have a balance between them, right? So the intersection of all these three, right, is known as the culture of empowerment. If any one of this is imbalanced, right, if there's only authority in the company, definitely the company is going to fail, the culture is not going to work. If everyone is just given responsibility but there is no accountability associated with them, or there is no authority, then definitely none of our employees are going to be happy, right? And if again, if there is only accountability but there is no authority given to any of the employee, then no one is going to be feeling happy about it, right? If you are accountable, but you are not the decision makers, you would not be happy if anything goes wrong. So it's always a balance or a proper mix of these three key things that creates an empowering culture. So that's what, right? So with all three, only then are people truly empowered, because they are managed, they are clear on what to do, and they are able to do it, right? So that is what is a key to create the culture of empowerment is. If we move on to next, right, what an empowered employee means to your company. This is now very important, right? Because if an employee is truly empowered, right, then he is your biggest advocate, whether it's in a market or whether it's in the internally in the company. Because any company, there would definitely be good things and areas of improvements everywhere. But then this empowered employee, right, would be the actual person who would be ensuring that the people who are having doubts in their mind, they would not be having it. He would become your advocate to clear those doubts for them, right? An employee would trigger the can-do attitude. He or she would always embrace changes because they would be clearly aware of, right, what those changes are meaning to the organization and how it would benefit them or impact them. Of course, a happy employee, an empowered employee, would provide better service and they would go an extra mile. They would definitely ensure that the best practices are followed and also ensure that other people are also following those practices, right? And in turn, they would become more productive. And overall, it endures good communication. So, these are some of the major things that an empowered employee would be benefiting in your company. And if just one employee can do it, a group of employees who are empowered, right, it would definitely change the entire culture of the company. And that's how what we have been doing in our company. So let me give some more examples, right, on how we have been cultivating this culture of empowerment, which would get more clear idea on the practical approaches of it on doing it. So how we have done it is how we have cascaded our vision and mission, right? So when we defined our vision and mission, we also defined certain guiding principles. We set up the leadership expectations. We have an employee bill of rights which is with each and every employee, where they know that what is expected out of them, and if something is not happening which is as per the bill of rights, then they have full freedom to go and challenge those processes or practices, right, to any of the top leaders. And of course, MBOs. We design our performance management system by MBOs and management by objective scenario, right? So that's how we do. We step back so people can step up. So any of our committees in the company that we are having, right? As I said, we are a 1200 employee company. So it is very much important that, we have different committees to ensure that everyone are kept engaged and they are happy working about it. So our CBID council, so right, that's culture, belonging, inclusion, and diversity. That's an employee driven council. None of the HR or anyone is involved in that, right? We as an HR are just involved to ensure that any new decision, anything that is taken is falling into the legalities of the company and the statutory thing and all. Otherwise, HR has no say in this. It's directly driven by the employees for the employees. Similarly, our employee engagement experiences, right? That's again driven by the employees. They decide what activities to be conducted, they decide the frequency of the activities, they decide what are the criteria for judging and everything whenever any contest and everything happen. Even our company newsletters are designed by the employees, right? They collect informations from each and every person, whether it's an HR department, whether it's a business department or finance or anywhere. So it's this group of employees, right, who on monthly basis collect this information and create the newsletters. Even our employee resource groups, they are again the employees. The CBID council decides what sort of employee resource groups are required or we can have, and these employee resource groups are again led by the individuals. Again, no HR or no one takes into this, right? So that's a lot of authority or empowerment that is being given to the employees to ensure that the right culture is set in the organization, and they set the culture by how they want to get treated, right? The third thing that we do, we over communicate. Like we have a lot of different mediums that we do on a regular basis, right? So we have all hands which are at company and department level, so you can understand what frequency it is. We have weekly business updates that we send out to each and every employee on a weekly basis. There are different one-on-ones that happen at different levels by managers and all, where again this sort of major things are being passed on to the employees, right? So we believe in over communication. It does not hamper, at least it has not hampered us, right? It only the thing that has turned out is a positive thing, where employees are actually aware of each and every information related to the company, whether it's related to their role or related to the businesses or related to the practices or policies. We support our employees, right? So we have various portals, platforms available with us through which we are supporting our employees. Now, it may be a case where there are certain people who are being promoted and they are now the first-time managers. So we have an entire program that is designed for them, which would help them in ensuring that they do not fail and they are set up for the success. So over there, coaching, mentoring, boot camps, lot of different things happen, under which there are different case studies being given to them. There are different talks or sessions arranged with the CXOs where they get to know about how the practices are there in the company, how we run the business, what are the do's and don'ts as a manager, right? So they get all that clear expectation as soon as they enter into the management role. Even for our sales team, we have been very clear, right, where what they need to do, what type of action they can take on there, what they cannot do is something that is very much clearly defined. What is the percentage of discounts, or they can go and give it directly without asking any of the bosses, right? We are trying to eliminate let me ask my boss barrier, and handing our sales executives with certain effects on how those things are happening. The access to data is for everyone, right? Data is the king, and employees who understand the company data are definitely more empowered. So we have a platform where all the sales data and everything is open and shared with all the employees, so that they are aware of how the company is moving forward, where the company is moving forward, and how it can be done. Saurabh, I see a few of the things that are written over here. I would cover that at the later stage. Just let me complete this thing.
Sure, no problem. Yeah.
Okay. Another thing in terms of support, how we support, we trust our employees, right? Any person who second guesses their employees' decision cannot make any impact, right? And it cannot work in a good way. So we have to trust our employees on what they are doing and how they are doing. And in case if there is any error committed by the employee, then we need to give them a positive reinforcement, right? So that's how we have our mentoring and coaching sessions in place, where if there are any issues or any errors or mistakes done by the employees, we coach them and mentor them to ensure that those mistakes are not repeated second time. So that's how we have been doing. We listen to our people, so we have a lot of engagement surveys and pulse surveys that are going on. We have scheduled a lot of water cooler talks with our CXOs. There are a lot of HR roundtables that are happening, skip level meetings, stay discussions, all these things are happening. And in fact, we have seen a lot of issues that have been raised during this in meetings that we are having, or the surveys, where we in fact got to know a particular group of people where there were a lot of malpractices going on in terms of people management and data manipulations. And we were with the help of this platform where the employees rose their concerns, we were able to take the right decisions, right, and ensure the trust back into the employees that the management is there for the people. And they definitely, if they raise the voice, we definitely go around, we check with the data what are the facts, and we take actions. And our employee benefit programs have been improved based on the the demand of the employees on what they have been looking for in terms of the coverage and all the stuff. So there is an incident, there is separate incidents where certain employees were not happy with the sort of shifts that we were having. So in fact, we listened to them, and we also saw that how we can minimize those shifts, at the same time ensuring that the business impacts were not there, and we were successful in doing that. So this has definitely helped us a lot. And last, we provide development opportunities to our people, right? So that's what we have been doing. As I said, coaching and mentoring, lead programs. There's a separate career wheel which is accessible to all employees, where they know that if they are right now in an HR department, if they want to transfer into an operations department, what are the competencies required for meeting that roles, and what are the criteria? So it's a very clear and crisp career wheel that is created, where employees can go and look into it and design their own careers. There are social style sessions and insight discovery sessions that are happening at the management level and team levels to ensure that there is a right way of managing the team. And of course, boot camps are specifically focused on the freshers or the first time managers. So these are the few things that we have been doing to ensure that we are cultivating the culture of empowerment. And as I said, it has helped us a lot in terms of understanding what are the grievances of our employees and taking the corrective measures for it. So in bits and pockets, there are a lot of things, but as an overall, how this has helped Numerator is this has helped us in retaining clients, right? Our client retention rate is 91%. Our ENPS score, the employee engagement surveys, right? Employee satisfaction score has always been on an increase. So if you compare quarter of 2019 to quarter of 2020, there was an increase of 18%, and from 20 to 21, there has been an increase of 22%. Our attrition rate has decreased by 5%. Our engagement level has always been around 91%. Our participation rate is greater than 85%, and with 1200 employees, it's a very commendable thing for us, I would say. Our internal job transfers, right? So with the career wheels and everything, that has helped us like for closing around 20% of our critical openings internally. And when I say this 20%, it's almost like 240 odd openings that we had closed internally with the internal transfers. So this the sort of culture that we have created in the company is definitely helping the employees to attain their career desires, designing their careers. It is helping the company attaining the retaining the clients, improving the attrition rates, keeping the workforce engaged. So definitely that is something that has helped us, and I'm sure that if we take the right steps, then this would definitely help all the companies, right? And one thing that I was just studying today, and I saw that our productivity has also not gone below 95%, even in this pandemic scenario where everyone has been working from home. So that I would say is truly impactful for us, that this is the sort of culture that has helped us to ensure that even working from home, our managers do not need to keep a daily track of what the work is being done by the employees, right? The productivity rate itself shows that it is good. So that's what I wanted to talk about, the culture of empowerment and all. And before closing, I would just like to look into this fact, this said by Dr. Abdul Kalam, where he clearly said that empowerment of women leads to the development of a good family, good society, and ultimately a good nation. Now, if have this converted into a corporate understanding, this can very well be said as empowerment of employees leads to development of good teams, good culture, good organization, and if majority of the companies start doing it, then definitely a good nation, right? So that's how we interpret Dr. Abdul Kalam's this statement, and I'm sure many of you would also be doing this. So this is what I had to discuss and talk about the culture of creating the culture of empowerment, what we have been doing it and how it has been helping us. So thank you everyone for listening to this, and do let me know if there are any questions or anything.
Thanks, Suchit, for the wonderful presentation. We have a couple of questions from the audience, and I'll just share it to you one by one.
Right. Yeah, I'm just reading the question, that it's interesting to know about the
Okay, okay.
employee participation. How does the efforts of activities get accommodated and budgeted? Some employees like it, some do not. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Like, so, what we have been generally doing is we have been looking at the trends of what sort of employee engagement activities are happening and what sort of participation we are getting in each and every activities. So there is an entire analytics that is carried out behind these activities, and that helps us in budgeting and accommodating this activities. And also what we do is like we run a poll where we ask our employees that what are their preferred type of activities that they would want to do under employee engagement, and it is the majority of the poll that we get is how we conduct. And all those, like, since we have been doing it for at least 2-3 years now, we are well aware of what sort of budget it would be having and how we need to accommodate it. So that is helping us in employee participation, because they are involved at each and every stage of the activity.
So the next question is how people treat each other in the organization.
Right. So as I said, we have this employee bill of rights, which very well clearly mentions like how you need to treat the employees and what actions can be taken if that treatment is not in a human way. So it is, as I said, we don't, there's always this methodology, right? Carrot and stick methodology, that everyone has it. We generally go with the carrot methodology of ensuring that if there are any issues, we train the employees to ensure that those issues do not come up again. And there is never a punishment taken on certain cases. And yes, we also have set some zero tolerance policies when it comes to if any of the, and this is specifically holds true in cases of CBIT things, right? So if there is an act of discrimination, right, or if there is an act of data manipulation done by anyone at any level, so these are some of the zero tolerance policies that we have kept, which ensures that everyone is aware of, if they do certain type of actions, what could be the reciprocation of it. So that helps us in ensuring that people are treating each other with respect, right, and the way that they want to be treated.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Atul. The next question is how to empower culture when you are bound as a service provider to third party, where each day both parties culture conflicts.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing when we are trying to create a culture of empowerment is to have the management buy-in. If your management is not ready, or right, if their focus is going to be only business, then definitely there would be an issue in developing this culture of empowerment. So the most important task of the HR over here is to have the management buy-in first and show them the effects of how the culture of empowerment can impact the business. So that is the first step that you can do to ensure that the companies are, I mean, there are no cultural conflicts coming in between the two parties. And then there are definitely going to be small things that you can still do right internally when it comes to the people management practices, even though there are different, as you said, the service provider to third party, where both parties there's a difference, but then internally in your team you can definitely still have those small atomic habits being created, which can help you, or micro habits that we say, that can help you in creating this culture of empowerment, and slowly and gradually you can show that impact to your organization, and that should probably help you in solving this in a longer term.
Uh, Thanks, Suchit. Our next question from Nikhil: what kind of engagement do we conduct in our COVID-19?
So, we had specifically, when we saw that, this COVID thing was impacting, we had come out with one thing which was known as gamification of processes. So this is particularly, a mix of IT and ITES company. So what we had done over there is, all the processes and the outputs that were required, they were all converted into, a gamification model, where each and every of the output that the employees were doing were associated with certain reward points on daily basis. And at the end of the month, the person who achieves the most reward points, or everyone who achieves about certain points, were given some sort of shout outs on our engagement platforms, or certain times we were giving out vouchers, gift cards. And along with it, we had created some 15-minute small activities. These were all fun activities where no work related talking was done or discussions were done, and this were purely focused on that chit chat sort of a mode that we used to have in the company. So this activities of 15 days, 15 minutes on daily or alternate days, were really helping the employees to keep them motivated, at the same time be in touch with their friends over the group or something. And then we also had happy hours that we were conducting. We were having happy meal hours, where the team would have lunches together over Zoom calls or Meet calls. So there are different engagement activities that we have done, which has helped us in keeping the team engaged. So,
Okay.
if I talk about CBID, this actually all started with the engagement surveys that we have at every 6 months, where people came up with this. There were certain issues that were coming in the company where they were facing certain types of non-inclusion behaviors from certain managers, or at certain level. And similarly, there were issues with working parents that were coming in when it came to work-life balance and all. So we thought that that is something which these employees are facing, and it would be best if the employees are the people who would be getting out the solution, because they are facing it at a daily basis. So that's where we started the CBID Council. So definitely this was initiated by HR, where the first group of people were selected by HR, aligned with the sort of the surveys that we are getting from the employee engagement and the action plans that we wanted to make on it. So all those people whose thoughts aligned in doing that is right, they were selected as the first group of people. And this was kept as an yearly rotational thing, where every year 50% of the staff would get rotated. So that's how we started with this, and then we let those CBID council members know about the issues that were raised in the engagement survey, and then they took it forward with, what sort of actions can be taken, whether everything needs to be on official basis, or there can be personal groups where counseling or mentoring sessions can be happening. So that's how we kickstarted this project of CBID.
Sure. So we have a question from Shilpi. Her question is: sometimes management is reluctant to talk about clear responsibilities in order to keep most employees pleased at middle management level.
Okay, so I mean, to answer Shilpi's question, right? So this is the entire process of change management, Shilpi, which I would say. And there are different ways, on which we can have this thing. Whenever we are talking of, having this sort of change or, change in the culture, we definitely can look into the Kurt Lewin's model of change management, where we unfreeze the things first, right? We decide what we need to do and then we freeze on those things. So there's an entire structure that is in place when we want to carry out certain activities. As I cannot definitely describe the whole model right now because it would take more time, but in a crux, what it says is that first you need to identify the people who would have the maximum impact and who are the most powerful people, and ensure that those people are in your what we call in your court, right, whenever you are planning to make these changes. Once that happens is where they would act as your advocates, or they would act as your influencers in influencing the others to ensure that those cultural changes are getting down. So if you just study the Kurt Lewin's model and use it, then it's the way that this is a gradual process. I wouldn't say this would make a change in say 6 months or something. This would take more time, but then it's a way to start, where you first identify through a framework who are your most impactful people and the most impacted people, and ensure that majority of that people are in your confidence, and then you can start moving down and ensure that it is cascaded to the lower level.
Thank you, Suchit. I hope that answers Shilpi's question. So we have a question from Amol. How do you manage expectations when there are opposing views between employee and management protocols?
So again, as I said, this is a part of change management. So it's more about what the management's vision and mission is in terms of managing the employees. So if that is clear, then is only when you would be able to have any of your cultures cascaded down the line. So in terms of managing the expectations, it is more about the HR, I would say, that needs to play a role over here and showcase to the management, right, that what sort of issues that are happening at the employee level and how they can be curbed and how management can help it. And just we need to show them the effects of it, right, how business can profit or how the employees would be profited out of it. So it's, again, as I said, it's a long-term process. It cannot happen in a overnight stance, but that is the way that we will need to have case studies being designed for this and showcase it to the management and show them the impact, what has happened if through dissatisfaction, and what could have happened if that could have been agreed upon. So it would take time, but then that is the way to start.
All right. Thank you, Suchit. And I think we can take just one more question. So we have one question from Renju, and the question is, do you any specific programs to support newly onboard leaders, as they themselves are new employees in the company? At the same time, they need to guide and motivate teams.
Yes, so we do have two programs that we have in place. So one is the buddy program that is assigned to any new employee or new hire who is joining the company, right, whether they are at the management level or at the associate levels. So these buddies are basically the people who would be helping them on managing the day-to-day activities and day-to-day doubts that the people would be having. And second is anyone who joins it at the management layer, there is a proper induction of 90 days that happens, right, where there are a lot of e-learnings that we have on a platform they need to go through, which shows that what are the manager essentials that anyone who joins in the company needs to know about. So those e-learnings combined with the buddy program helps any of the person who joins us in the new in a new management role to ensure that they are doing the work, at the same time they're able to guide the team. And definitely the coaching and mentoring thing is a open thing, and everyone knows about it from the day one it's being told in the induction. So anywhere, wherever we see there is an issue or there is a requirement, we do assign a coach or a mentor, and we follow that 30, 60, 90-day plan, right, so that it is reviewed at regular intervals and helps the company as well as the new person ensure that what are the areas that still needs to be worked upon.
All right, those were great inputs, Suchit. So I think by this we'll wrap up our session. And thank you, Suchit, for your valuable time and for sharing such good views and sharing your experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Shreya.